Welcome back, guys, to another edition of the Go Earn It podcast. And today, I'm super excited. This has been honestly a dream come true of mine, because I've followed this guy's career for a very, very long time. I had the chance to meet him back in the day when he fought in Chicago. He is one of the best 45 pounders in the UFC today. He's Ricardo Lamas. Ricardo, how you doing today, buddy?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being on. It's quite an honor for me to be able to do a podcast with a guy like yourself, just following your career, and it's really cool, man. So I appreciate your time. For listeners that don't know who Ricardo Lamas is, Ricardo, would you mind giving our listeners a little background on who you are? Obviously, you can chalk up saying you're just a UFC fighter, but you're a man of many hats, and you've done a lot for not only the sport of MMA, but wrestling and everything else. So if you don't mind, could you share a little bit of your story?
Sure. I grew up in, the west suburbs of Chicago.
Yeah.
Went to high school at Hinsdale Central. That's where I started my wrestling career. When I went in as a freshman, basically joined the team because my older brother did it. So
Yeah.
Started wrestling there, wrestled at Elmhurst College. And then post-collegiate career, I still had that drive to compete. So I started training MMA.
Yeah.
And, it was one of those things that I was really unsure if I wanted to keep doing it. I thought maybe it was going to be like I do one amateur fight, get it out of my system, and then move on.
Yeah.
But quickly realized that it's a very addictive sport. So it started with one amateur fight, then I wanted another, then I wanted to turn pro, then I wanted a belt, and then I got a call to be a part of the big show and started fighting for the WEC in 2009. And at that time, they were owned by the same people that own UFC. They were owned by Zuffa. So I fought for them for about 2 years, and then in end of 2010, they merged pretty much almost all the WC fighters into the UFC. So then I became part of the UFC and had my first UFC fight in 2011.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. I look at a guy like yourself, and just to see and hear about like your upbringing in Illinois, and then to be one of the top guys, not only in this state but just in MMA in general. You've been competing at a very, very high level, and for you it must seem surreal almost sometimes to think, like, fast forward back when you were thinking about think about your college wrestling days, and you fast forward now, you're working and putting in work, owning a UFC gym in Naperville, doing all this stuff. Like, how is that? How have you tried to bask all that in?
It's still very surreal when I think about it a lot. I'll see pictures of myself from fights, like, walking through the tunnel, and you see like the entire arena just filled, and it's crazy to think that that's me doing that sometimes. But it's the want to fight for the UFC started long before I graduated college. I remember being an 11-year-old kid, and my brother brought home a VHS of like UFC 3.
Wow.
It was like no weight classes, no gloves, and you could ask buddies of mine that I've been friends with since I was a kid, and they'll tell you that since I was like 11, 12 years old, I was telling them that I was going to fight in the UFC one day.
That's nuts, man. So where did obviously we'll get into a little bit of the impact wrestling's made on your life, but for you, was it just mixed martial arts? Just was something like a interest that just caught your eye, or did you grow up around it besides the wrestling aspect of being a wrestler? Did you ever do any other type of mixed martial arts as a younger kid?
I did. I was very into martial arts, very into karate, taekwondo. I was like, and I was and still am like a huge Bruce Lee fanatic. So since I was a little kid, since as long as I could remember, I've been obsessed with Bruce Lee. So I always wanted to do what he did in his movies, and so I started taking like karate lessons here and there when I was real little, and then got kind of serious when I was about kind of around the same age when I started, watching UFC. I might have been like 10.
Yeah.
10, and I started doing taekwondo and did that for a few years. And then when my brother started wrestling and I started wrestling, I really fell in love with that sport. So that's when I really got super interested in UFC also, because at the time, wrestlers were dominating the sport. And I also liked it for the fact that I used to watch Hoist Gracie, who was like a smaller guy, and me being a small kid, like for my age, I'd see this smaller guy beat up on all these big dudes. And
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I need to do that. So it appealed to me being like a small kid and seeing this regular sized guy just taking out all these gigantic dudes. So.
Right, yeah, and I mean your nicknames, the bully. I mean, that's what it was a good segue right into that question. For listeners that don't know and are listening currently to this, tell the listeners where the nickname came from.
So a lot of people get confused with the nickname and they think it comes from me being like a schoolyard bully.
Yeah,
but really, come here. This is where the nickname comes from. These guys right here. So this is actually my second bull terrier. He was the younger one. I had two, and
that's awesome.
The first one that I had was really, almost like a training partner for me. He'd go to the gym with me all the time.
Yeah.
For a while there, I was kind of living in Miami for a good year and a half, and
okay.
I'd spend a month down there, a month up here. And he would go. Well, he would stay down there, and I'd have one of my cousins was living with me at the time, and
yeah,
her boyfriend would watch him for me when I come back home. But he was the one that would keep me company on all those lonely training camps and stuff. So the nickname was kind of like an homage to the bull terrier. Bully.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see where the nicknames come from and how they come to fruition. Most people would assume, like, especially with your nickname, the bully, people thinking, oh, Ricardo Lamas, he's just a mean dude, just beating up people in the schoolyard. But it's cool that I would have never guessed that. So Ricardo, now I want to backtrack and talk about the sport of wrestling and the importance of it, and how it's shaped you as a person. So talk about your younger years growing up in the sport of wrestling. How was that interest for you? Were you a type of kid where you were, in a singlet at 4 years old and then just went at it? Or was it something you played around with, kind of got interested in it? And then when did, I guess my question is, when did you realize that wrestling was going to be a big part of your life?
Well, I started wrestling as a freshman in high school, so I really didn't know anything about the sport.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, until kind of my brother joined. He joined as a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
And he actually hid it from my parents at first. So he would say that he was staying after school to, I don't know, go to the library or study or something, and really he was going to wrestling practice.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Talk to my parents about it, yeah. And then he'd come home and we'd get into fights and he'd bend me up into a pretzel, and I kind of had to join the team in necessity, out just how to learn how to defend myself from all his holds and stuff.
Yeah.
But so freshman year, I enjoyed it. I liked wrestling. I didn't know if I wanted to continue with it after freshman year, but I did it just out of spite.
Sure.
Because my brother did it and kind of thought that I wouldn't be able to do it. So I'll show him. I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But after my sophomore year, towards the end, that was when my dad started really understanding the sport and getting involved and coming to our meets and watching us wrestle. So me and my dad drove down to watch the state finals after my sophomore year season. And I just remember sitting in Assembly Hall at U of I and watching the finals. And that's when it hooked me, just seeing all these kids or these guys that were my age. Some of them were even younger than me.
Yeah.
Wrestling for a state finals match and, able to say that they are the best wrestler in the entire state of Illinois at their weight class. And,
yeah.
Watching the spotlights on them during their matches and stuff, that just hooked me in right there. And that was the turning point in my wrestling career when I really started to wrestle year round and put all I had into the sport because I wanted to get there.
Yeah. So fast forward, how did the couple of years in high school pan out in wrestling for you?
Not too good. I was a good wrestler.
Yeah. And I always ask that because it doesn't, you can't chalk up somebody's success, especially after high school, based off of what they did in high school, because there's a lot of late bloomers. Like, I find it very cool that you said that you started your freshman year, because I started my freshman year in high school wrestling, and I was fortunate enough to qualify for state my senior year at 215. But for me, that was like the bread and butter. Like, I thought I was on cloud nine just to be able to say that I was one of the best to qualify for state. So
Yeah.
how was it for you?
Yeah, and that was pretty much exactly my goal in high school, was to qualify for
Yeah.
the state tournament, and then, obviously wrestle my ass off when I got there to see if I could place.
Right.
But I was, I got upset at the sectional. So
Yeah.
wrestling a kid that I had beaten earlier in the season at the Dvorak tournament, I beat him like 8-0.
Yeah.
And then I saw him. It was the semifinal match to get to the third place match at sectional. So if I won that, I would have had to wrestle one more time to go down state. I was winning the match 6-3, 3 takedowns going into the third period. I choose down, and he was one of these kids that just had like crazy long arms.
Mm-hmm.
Go to stand up, he cradles me, puts me to my back.
Oh man.
Out of that, I go to stand up again. He cradles me a second time, puts me to my back. By the time I fight out of that, there's like less than a minute left on the clock. I finally get an escape with maybe like 15 seconds left, and couldn't get a takedown. So
the
I ended up
heartbreaker.
winning the match, I think like 8-6 or something like that. So
That sounds like a nightmare you have from time to time.
yeah, it is. But you know what? I'm glad it happened, because who knows where I'd be if I would have qualified for state, if I would have reached that goal of mine. Maybe I would have been satisfied. I mean, knowing me, maybe not. But I mean, who knows?
No, but it shapes, like, that's the important part about wrestling that I like to talk about on this podcast. And I don't always go into, like, this podcast. I just did a podcast with Jason Manley. He's a jiu-jitsu coach, one of the best out there, and he was talking about the same thing. It's what you learn from these disciplines. It's not about what you do with them. It's what you learn from them. And like a sport like wrestling, you just vividly gave me a play-by-play of that match you lost. That's always going to stick in your heart, but it's for a good reason, because it's a reminder. Hey, that was a bad time in my life. I'm not going to get in that position ever again. And that's how it applies to life, in losing. You're going to lose. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to fall on your face, but it's a matter of how you overcome that,
That's right. I could say with complete confidence that if it wasn't for my failures that I've had in my athletic career, I wouldn't make it as far as I have made it.
For sure.
You're not defined by your losses. You're defined on how you come back from those losses. So, two ways: either tuck your tail and run away, or you could face adversity head on and keep fighting and keep improving. So
yeah, for sure.
If it wasn't for me setting those goals and falling short of them, every time I fell short of one of those goals, it kind of lit that fire in my stomach to keep driving and keep pushing forward and to set the bar even higher for the next. So after high school, I didn't really have any intentions on wrestling in college, but after that happened, I was like, I'm not going to end my wrestling career like this. I'm going to keep it going.
And you are probably, especially like I can understand this too. You're not even peaking yet as far as your ability to be a high level wrestler, because you're still learning. Like, it takes a long time, and there's a reason why these guys that are Division I champions, you ask them, they started when they were in diapers, and sometimes you get a miracle case where like some people are just that gifted, but for the most part, these wrestlers are grinding from the time they are 5-6 years old all the way until they're in their mid-20s. So go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all good. You kind of hit the nail on the head there. I mean, I wasn't anywhere near my potential as far as where I could be in the sport of wrestling.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got to Elmhurst and I got really good coaching behind me, that's when I really started to skyrocket and excel in the sport. My high school coaches were great, but my head coach never wrestled before. He was a football coach, and our assistant coach was the technician, but he was like one of these older coaches that had been in it for so long and was just sick of the kids coming in and going through the program and not giving a shit about the program, not putting in the time and not putting in the work.
Right.
So, he would just show us stuff, and during practice, that was kind of it, but he wouldn't really push anybody to
I get what you mean.
Practice in the off season, or call you up.
It's
like,
sad,
hey,
man. There's a lot of coaches out there like that in
Yeah.
Illinois, especially like that. Unless you're like honestly, unless you're like a Israel Martinez or a guy like that, like there's a lot of these coaches aren't that level, and they don't have the
Right.
they don't have the ambition to be that level, because most of these people are teachers. They're not real coaches. They're either, like you said, football coaches or math teachers or whatever you can think of, and it's tough, man. So going into college, how was those years at Elmhurst for you?
They're good. It took me a year to get to Elmhurst, and I landed at Elmhurst pretty much all by chance.
Okay.
My plan was to go to University of Illinois, walk on the team there, because one of my older brothers graduated from U of I. So
Okay.
I go there. I had a couple of my best friends from high school got into that school.
Yeah.
So my first year, my freshman year of college, I went out to the community college in Champaign, Parkland, Parkland College.
Yep.
And in a perfect world, I would have went there, and I was thinking to myself that maybe I could talk to the head coach and go practice with the U of I team,
Right.
something like that, while I'm waiting to get into school. That didn't really turn out. Obviously there's like insurance reasons. I'm sure they can't have people that aren't students going up and practicing with the team.
Sure.
So, I would call every week. I would call up the wrestling program, and they'd direct me to this guy, Steve Marinetti, who was in charge of transfers.
Beast of a coach.
Yeah. So I had an intimate relationship with Steve Marinetti's answering machine for that first year at Parkland.
Yeah.
And the dude would never call me back. I always give him shit for it now, and probably want to beat me up for telling the story. But so it was funny that after that year happened, I was like, I don't want to take another year off of wrestling.
Yeah.
And I was having a little more fun than studying down at Parkland and Champaign. So I was like, I'll come home,
Right.
put my grades up, wrestle for a year, and then try to transfer back. So I came home, and how I landed with Elmhurst was I went online and Googled like the closest college to my house that had a wrestling program, and Elmhurst up. So like I said, man, it had to be fate. It had to be something higher that was leading me there. Because if it wasn't for my time there and my coaching there, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Yeah.
So that first year, Steve wasn't there yet. It was Tim Gatto, who was the head coach. I wrestled with him. But while I was there, the assistant coach, Alex Pons, who was a Cuban national team member and wrestled for Cuba, he was the first one I met there that really took my wrestling to a higher level. And he was one of those coaches that you were talking about that will push you. And basically, besides the practices I was doing with the team, I was meeting with him at 5:30 in the morning almost every day.
Yeah.
And we were drilling in and conditioning and lifting and all this work. So I learned a lot of hard work from him. My following year, Tim Gatto left, and Steve Marinetti ended up becoming the head coach of the program. So we kind of did a whole 180 turn from me pulling up his answering machine all the time to him being my head coach.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so after that, I kind of took it as a sign. I was like, look, you wanted to go to U of I, and now you have one of their coaches here.
Yeah.
So I decided to stay at Elmhurst, especially after that first year with Steve, because my wrestling went up, another level. And since then, when he was coaching those last 3 years, each year I progressed exponentially to the next level. And by my senior year, I qualified for nationals my junior year. I was a match away from being an All-American. My senior year at the qualifier, the regional, which is about 2 weeks before the national tournament, I separated my shoulder in my final match. I had an injury default out of the finals, but luckily got a cortisone shot that saved my shoulder enough, and I was able to make it to the semifinals of the national tournament before my shoulder kind of gave out again. And from there, I just kind of dropped down to the fifth place match, and I had to injury default out of the fifth place match about halfway through the match because my shoulder didn't take it anymore. So luckily, I All-American, took sixth place when there was a chance where I couldn't even have wrestled at all at the tournament. So I was thankful for that. And then I took a year. I stayed on as an assistant coach on the Elmhurst staff after I graduated. And I remember sitting on the side coaching these guys, but I still had that like fire inside to be out there competing.
The itch, yep.
Yeah, that itch. So
Yeah.
that's when I started training MMA.
So where was the first gym you went to, or who was the first person you were like, all right, I'm gonna start doing this MMA stuff, so who am I gonna go to that I trust the most to get me to a successful path? Where did you go?
So I didn't have to look far. After that freshman year at Parkland, I came home and I looked for a summer job.
Yeah.
And I ended up at the Park District in Oak Brook, right by my house, and the fitness center there, you know, the health club.
Yeah.
And one of my brothers actually hooked me up with the job because I had applied earlier but didn't get it. And my brother knew the fitness manager, so he took me in there within like 5 minutes. I was pretty much hired. And so I worked there on and off throughout college every summer.
Okay.
So I did my little like internship there because I was an exercise science major, and I got my personal training certificate after I graduated, or my certification.
Sure.
I was personal training there, and throughout that whole time when I was working there was another guy, Ricardo Lamas, who was a personal trainer there. And at the time where I wanted to do MMA, I had known him that whole time. I knew that he did boxing and Muay Thai, and sometimes I'd take his little classes he'd do at the Park District.
Yeah.
And I'd always talk to him and tell him that I wanted to fight MMA. And so then at that time when I really wanted to do it, he was kind of splitting off from the Park District and beginning to open up his own gym, was eventually Top Notch MMA.
Top Notch, yeah.
And he told me to come up and learn how to box and do some Muay Thai. And that's kind of where it all started. You know, I went in there, and a week from my first day, he threw me into a boxing fight.
Jeez.
So like I pretty much knew how to throw a jab, a cross, and a hook.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got you a fight next Wednesday. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I just got here.
Yeah.
So I think he did it to see if I kind of had the balls to go through with it, because I had been talking so much about how I wanted to fight. So
yeah.
I think it was a test.
It sounds very reminiscent of one of your proteges, Ronny Hauser. He told me the first time him going to Top Notch, and he's like, dude, the first week they put me in to spar, man. Like they're not joking around here. They really they put you through the test, like, you know, and that's probably a good thing for MMA gym, no? Like, if you truly want to train MMA, you got to go through the not so fun, you know, stuff. You know, you're gonna get hit. You're gonna get your ass kicked. You know, so how was that first experience? That first week training at Top Notch? Were you like, what the hell am I doing, or was it just like kind of like a new a revigoration of feeling like, oh, this is like wrestling. I'm gonna start applying just all my dedication to it. How did it go down?
It was cool. It was learning a new sport was fun.
Yeah.
You know, being an athlete, being a serious athlete, I love to learn and I love to progress. And learning how to box was awesome, even though I could barely hold my hands up for an entire 3-minute round. Like when you first start, you don't realize how much your shoulders burn.
How tired you get, upper body.
Yeah. It's a completely different cardio than wrestling. So getting used to that. You know, the first boxing match didn't go too well. I lost the decision. I didn't get like knocked down or anything like that.
Sure.
Didn't really know what I was doing yet. You know?
Right.
I just kind of try and bull charge people and throw jab crosses at them and haymakers. But I kept going. He saw that I was serious about it. I didn't back out of the fight or anything. I had a few more boxing matches after that, amateur ones. I was like 2-2 in amateur boxing, and then I was like, enough of this boxing stuff. We need to get an MMA fight already. So we signed up for one, and it kind of snowballed into what it is now. Yeah.
So in the WEC days, when you were fighting for that organization, were you in mind of the fact that you're in this pool of fighters that are about to get absorbed by UFC, and this sport's about to get taken to the next level? Did you know that all this was going to come to you, or were you kind of just going with the flow of fighting? And because honestly, there was never a guarantee that, one, the WEC was going to get bought by the UFC, and two, the UFC blowing up the way it has the last 20 years. What was it like for you?
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, WC was owned by the UFC, but they gave no hint that they were ever going to merge the two organizations together.
Right.
Even asked the matchmaker when we started hearing rumors about it, and he denied it.
Yeah.
So I was happy where I was at. Back then, UFC, they didn't have the lighter weight classes.
Right.
155 was the lightest one. So I was fighting at 155 in the WEC, but, I kind of always had plans to drop to 145 eventually.
Yeah.
WC was where I wanted to stay because obviously it was the only one that had weight classes for the smaller guys. So I didn't really have it in my head like, oh, they're going to merge us in with the UFC and it's going to be this big thing. To me, I was already a huge fan of the WEC. I used to watch, I don't know if you remember the Tap Out show on the Versus channel.
Yeah, Versus, back when those Versus.
Yeah, so that was back when I first saw the WC because a lot of their guys went there.
Yeah,
the Donald Cowboy Cerrone ended up there.
I'm thinking of what's that Bart? What's his last name? Bart something. Pink hair. Yeah. I remember seeing him at the UFC Chicago when you fought, and I sent you that picture. I saw him walking around. I'm like, dude, you've been fighting for a long time, and you see guys like Jens Pulver and. It's crazy. All the lighter guys that make up the UFC now, I believe. It's insane. That was like a diamond in the rough for UFC to pick up that stable of fighters because without that, I mean, you wouldn't have the these crazy fights. The 45 pounders, 35, 25 pounders. So it's kind of insane to think that you were just rolling with it because WEC, I'm sure. Just like UFC, these fighters aren't getting as compensated as what they really deserve, and you guys are fighting paycheck to paycheck sometimes. So hopefully, I mean, not saying you are today, you Ricardo have built your success and everything, but for a guy back then, how were you feeling about the comfort of financial security as an adult? What was going through your mind?
I was, like I said, I was bouncing a lot between Illinois and Miami.
Yeah.
And luckily, my family had a place down in Miami. We owned a little condo down there.
Sure.
So, and when I'd come back, I'd stay with my parents. So I wasn't concerned with anything financially because I was still pretty much living from home, fighting. Okay. And I would just kind of save up all my money like a pack rat. You know what I mean? And, so that was good that I was saving because I wasn't really – when I look back on it, when I was making that money, I was like, wow, I just made this many thousands of dollars in one fight when I was used to making – my first pro fight I made $400. Oh, and when I made that, I was like, damn, I just made $400 in 2 minutes.
Rent's paid, let's go.
Hey,
Yeah.
You're stupid when you're younger. You think dumb things like that.
Yeah.
So to where I'm at now, there's a huge difference in the money that I'm making now and that I was, and it's taken a long time to get to where I'm at now. So everybody out there that thinks they're going to join MMA and become a millionaire, it's not like that. You got to put in your work and you got to put in the time. I call
every UFC fighter, I mean, with a sprinkle of some people that I don't think deserve to be there. I'll keep it at that, but you guys are 1%ers, just like Division I national champions in the sport of wrestling. Same thing with UFC fighters. You guys are the cream of the crop. You guys are the highest level of mixed martial art athlete you can see, And right now, for you, how's it been? So I'm not gonna shy away from asking harder questions. That's not me, and my podcast is about just opening up, talking about dealing with adversity. Right now, it's fair to say you've been through some adversity the last year, up and down with fighting, wins, losses. What's it like stepping back now, Ricardo, and seeing it for how it is? What have you processed in your mind as everything has gone down for you?
In this sport, you can never always be on top. You can never always be on top of that mountain. You have to, something that after my last fight, I was backstage and BJ Penn came up to me, gave me a pat on the back, and
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, kind of gave me a hug and was like, "Listen, man, stay up. he said that this game moves in cycles. It's like a circle. You know, you're never always on top and you're never always on bottom. It just kind of goes in a cycle. So I kind of took that to heart, and you know, I knew that kind of before, but it was just really nice to hear it from like a legend like DJ.
Yeah, especially you were watching him growing up, just like everybody else, you know?
Yeah, hell yeah, I watched him growing up. So, you know, cool to hear that, and I just got to keep moving forward. I'm on a 2-fight skid right now.
Yeah.
This has been the lowest point of my career. I've never lost 2 fights in a row.
Right.
So this is new to me. But I'm not nowhere being done yet.
No, not at all.
If you look at fights, yeah, I've gotten caught here and there in fights, but that happens in the sport of MMA. You know, we wear 4-ounce gloves, so you get connected with on the right spot. And
we just saw a 40-year-old win the heavyweight title. You know,
yeah.
Like Cormier's about to be 40, and like you're gonna tell me if he was gonna let 2 losses to John Jones affect him? You know, that would have crumbled him, but it didn't. Look at him now. He's a 2-time champ. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really have any other choice, man. I just got to keep moving forward and keep getting better as a fighter.
Yeah.
And I believe I'm still there with
sure.
all my fights. I've been ranked in the top 10 for the past how many years for a reason. And all my fights with these top guys, I feel like I'm right there with them. I'm not getting knocked out every fight.
When I watched you fight Jose Aldo, not to cut you off, like that's when people understood how good of a fighter you were. Was in my opinion, you know, like you could see all your wins and your knockouts and TKOs and submissions, but to go through the war you did with Jose Aldo and come out, you know, as a better fighter, I believe, just from that experience, people saw that, you know, that put a stamp on who you are as a fighter to be able to go to war with a guy like that. Because Jose Aldo at the time, arguably the best 45-pounder we've ever seen, you know, one of them at least. So for you, like, go on, tell me.
Yeah, no, that fight was, you know, I ended the fight the way I should have fought the whole time. I ended the fight on top of him, landing elbow, doing my ground and pound. And I learned a lot from that fight because I was kind of holding back. And when you're under that much pressure, like, you know, my whole career, I wanted that opportunity to fight for the title and to become a world champion.
Yeah.
And when it was all on the line and you hesitate, like, it, you know, I always think about that. And I feel like I was being a little too cautious and a little too careful in that fight. And you're not going to beat a guy like Jose Aldo just sitting back and waiting for him to make a mistake because he's not going to do it. You know, he has too much on the line too. So I feel like I really should have brought the fight to him a little more.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to bring up sour grapes with that fight, just pinpointing like a loss or anything. I'm just saying, like, when you watch somebody fight Jose Aldo and be able to do what you did, it's pretty impressive, you know, because Jose's starched people. You know, Jose's made pretty quickly of some of the best 45-pounders besides yourself look pretty amateur. So it's insane to think that, hey, man, I was very close to being that on the other end of the decision. So right now, what's Ricardo Lamas's what's his game plan for the rest of the year? Are you just taking a step back, training, and then just working on getting better as a fighter, or what are you up to nowadays? Tell me a little bit about your gym, because I did want to harp on that a little bit. I hope you have a couple more minutes. I do want to talk about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. That is a huge part of what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
You know, we just opened up. May 5th was our soft opening.
Congratulations, by the way. That's awesome.
Thank you very much. We had our grand opening the week after my fight. So we're in full swing now, full hours, adding classes every month, building our membership base. And I've been really concentrated on that, and I'm getting more involved at the gym and teaching. I'm in charge of the jiu-jitsu program there.
Yeah.
So I'm teaching Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday jiu-jitsu. We're adding in a competition class this month also for people who are interested in competing or for guys who already fight and want to get better. So I'm heading that up too. And just really working on new initiatives to keep growing our membership base with with my other partners in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
For anybody who doesn't know, we're talking about my UFC gym in Naperville. We're located off 790 Royal St. George Drive.
Yeah, and it's open, and if you don't mind, it kind of explain to a random listener or a random person that's going to go about checking out this UFC gym. It's open to the public. You can sign up for a membership, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
because a lot of people get that misconception, like, oh, that's a UFC gym, so let me just assume that only UFC fighters train there and I can't go in. Like, that's not the case. You can actually sign up to be a part of this gym, take classes, learn from UFC fighters, coaches, etc.
Yeah, and that's actually a big misconception that we get.
Yeah.
UFC has a huge following.
Right.
But to the general public, when they see those 3 letters up there on a building, they're like, "Oh my God, they're going to be dudes in there beating the shit out of each other."
Well, when they call MMA UFC, like, oh,
Yeah.
I UFC, bro. Like that's a lot of people out in the public MMA fan is actually just a UFC buff. It's not really, they don't truly understand mixed martial arts.
Yeah, exactly. So a big misconception about the UFC gym is we cater to all ability levels.
Okay.
And the entire family. So
right.
We literally have kids classes that start at 4 years old, and we have people that are in their 60s and 70s taking our cardio boxing classes. So our boxing and kickboxing classes are more like of a cardio base. You go in, you get a good workout, a fun workout, and it's not like running on a treadmill.
Sure.
We do functional fitness classes also. With tons of state-of-the-art equipment. We got, we use battle rope sleds, kettlebell sandbags, Bulgarian bags. But then apart from that, with me being an owner in the gym, we're trying to also cater to those people who do want to compete and maybe do want to bring their game to the next level. So you could go in there, and we're, one of the only gyms in the country that is owned by a UFC fighter.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, that's not, there's UFC gyms across the nation, but you're in a very fortunate situation that you be able to say that you own this. So how is that for you to, do you recommend that to other fighters, like in their areas, like to do the same thing? As far if you get the, obviously I know there's more behind it, and it's not just like, oh, I'm going to own a gym. It's easy as that. But is that something that was bestowed upon you, or you went and sought after it? You went and you wanted to do this. How did that come about, getting the gym ownership?
Well, the gym part was always kind of the end goal, especially after I retire from fighting. I can't fight forever. So you have to take all this notoriety that you're getting from your professional career and this money that you're getting, put it aside so that you could make something else to make money later on in life. So the gym was always there. And my college roommate and teammate, Matt Kush, we wrestled together at Elmhurst. We had talked about opening up a gym together pretty much since we were in college, like some sort of maybe a wrestling club gym or a gym when I started fighting. We've been talking about it for a long time. So we were going back and forth on whether we wanted to do our own independent gym. And then when we learned about UFC gym, I went and checked out a few. I remember doing open workouts at a couple at some of my fights.
Yeah.
Liked the setup. I liked the family environment that they provide. And I just thought it'd be a really good fit for me. And they offer good benefits to UFC fighters who want to open up a UFC gym. So I would suggest any fighter out there to look into it for sure, and just see what fits kind of your style best. You know what I mean? You might want to go your own independent route, or you might want the route of like a UFC gym. We decided to go with the UFC gym because we liked what they were doing and we believed in the model. And we're here now. That's
awesome. So for listeners, go check out the UFC gym in Naperville. They got a Facebook page, Instagram page. You'll find it very easily. Just look up UFC gym Naperville. A couple more minutes with Ricardo. Ricardo, so what's training like for you right now? You're just kicking back. Obviously, the workload right now is focused on building the gym and getting that going. But Ricardo Lamas, the fighter himself, what's he doing to get better?
I'm still training every day. The great thing about owning a gym is you have it there at your disposal. So I'm at the gym every day, and before my classes, I'm getting my workouts in. I'm inviting training partners of mine to come out there and do workouts with me there, get my sparring in, my pad work and everything.
Yeah.
So just constantly working on trying to improve where I need to improve, and constantly in there drilling new techniques. And now that I've started teaching also, it helps you improve on your own technique, because
for sure.
when normally you just do it, you don't have to think about it, boom, you're done. But then you start thinking about all the little details that you have to teach beginners, and it makes you improve on your own technique, because you're like, oh, I got to do this, and so it helps you sharpen up on everything.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it a lot. I love teaching, and man, I'm just getting in, and I want to fight one more time before the year's up.
That was my question. Is it safe to say that we're gonna see Ricardo in the octagon before 2019?
Of course.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'd like to get one in maybe in the late fall before the holidays roll around.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely gonna fight one more time this year.
Nah,
sure.
You're not the type, and you've never really been the type to go the McGregor route, start calling out people left and right. Is there anybody you're just interested in fighting, or you're just aiming for top 5, top 10? What do you think you deserve right now? Honestly, coming off a little skid, that doesn't really reflect the level you're at as a fighter still. So what are you thinking?
If I could run that last fight back that I just had,
if
I any pick, I'd pick a rematch with Mirsad, because man, that one my scan quite a bit, and I feel I'm
not here to bring that up. I just had to ask, because I feel like the only option is either get a rematch back, or at least somebody around that level.
Yeah, if I had my choice, I'd love a rematch with Mirsad.
Okay.
I thought it was a good fight. I thought it was a fun fight. I thought it was a very close fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did a lot of kind of rookie mistakes in there.
Mm-hmm.
The whole camp, I was training, and I was catching everybody with my guillotine, and I normally always catch people. That's my go-to move,
Right.
So my whole training camp, I was like, dude, if I get a hold of this guy's neck, it's done. I'm going to get him with this guillotine.
Yeah.
And I saying that over and over in my head so much that in the fight, that's all I was going for.
Yeah.
I almost had him one time. I swear to God, I think that guy greased up his neck or something. I know the difference between sweat and then sweat and something
like
else.
Vaseline.
It almost felt like when somebody bleeds.
Oh, okay.
With their sweat,
it's like slick. It's slick.
A lot slicker.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna go making accusations.
No.
The cool guy or whatever.
Right.
And, I just like to get that one back. I think that if I fight him again with a clear head, it'll go way different.
Yeah. How's the atmosphere before I close out the podcast? Ask my last question and get you out of here. How's the atmosphere like at Team Top Notch? Are you still going around there? Training from time to time, or has it just been because you've been so invested in the UFC gym that you haven't been around lately?
Yeah, I haven't been there since my fight because of the gym. Obviously, I'm trying to get it back up off the ground.
Right.
But as soon as I book something and get a little closer to the fight, I'm going to be a regular fixture in there again.
Yeah. How's the evolution of seeing a guy like Ronny Hauser? Ronny, I competed with him at UW Whitewater. We wrestled together. He's a good buddy of mine. And we're actually going to get some content done because we're going to hype up his fight for August 4th. He's fighting at XFO against a rematch he lost. One of our Go Earn It sponsored athletes, Jose Leon. Ronnie's accepted a rematch and trying to get that one back from Jose. How's it watching a guy like Ronnie evolve? Because you could probably kind of see yourself in a guy like him, because Ronnie's a beast.
Yeah, he's a tough kid. He's a real good kid. He's a hard worker. I think that's what I like most about him is he puts in the work and always shows up and trains his ass off. So you got to respect a guy like that.
For sure.
I'm trying to help him out as much as I can.
Yeah.
He's actually helping us out up at the gym too. So whenever he's there, he'll jump in and train with me and trying to trying to give back and give these guys all the knowledge that I've learned over my fight career. So.
Yeah, I had to bring him up because when we did content when he fought last time and we were doing some stuff with Garnett and him, he really praised just like the appreciation he had for just the little things you did for him, like whether it's a text message or being at his fight. He really appreciates that. So I wanted to make sure you knew that he, you're doing good things for other people, man. So it's reciprocating back, and it's good stuff, man. So Ricardo, my last question. Once again, thank you for being on the podcast. But I always close out by asking, when somebody says you have to go earn it, what does a saying like "go earn it" mean to a fighter like you?
That you got to put in the work. That nothing's given to you for free in life.
Right.
Nothing's owed to you. If you want something, you got to go out and make it happen.
Yeah.
You got to work your ass off. There's two things. You're either going to find a way or you're going to find an excuse. So I'm the person that always finds a way.
Awesome. Well, Ricardo, where can listeners find you? Where this is your time to give your plugs. Where can we follow you, see what you're up to?
You can follow me on all my social media pages at Ricardo Lamas MMA on Instagram and Twitter.
Yep.
And you can follow my Facebook fan page, Ricardo the Bully Lamas. And I'm doing better. I'm starting to post regularly now. And I actually see my numbers rising pretty fast since I've been really engaged in my social media and trying to engage my followers. So
yeah, man, that's why. I didn't mean to bug you if I ever did, trying to get you on the podcast. I just think a guy like yourself, we're based out of Rockford, Illinois. You're like one of those guys in Illinois that everybody knows, and it's important to keep out of the shadows, man. No matter what, you got a whole army that's rooting for you. No matter what you go through, the losses, you're gonna go through the bad times, but you got a good following. So I just want to let you know that it's awesome to see that you're coming back out of the shell and you're doing the right things, So Ricardo, thank you for your time, man. I will be looking forward to probably I'll come by the gym and I'll have to check it out, man. Get a workout from you or something, if that's cool with you.
For sure. Let us know, man. Anytime, you're welcome.
All right, Ricardo, you have a good one. Thank you for your time, buddy.
You too, man. Talk to you later.
See ya.